I started collecting toys when I got my first job. So I was 18 years old. I just got a job at a White Castle, and I think at that point I put myself into comic books and action figures big time. The main theme you'll see with the action figures I collect, they're mainstream DC comics. They're the Justice League. That's what I love. I love the Justice League. I like the Avengers, Marvel, but I love the Justice League. And it's kind of comes even before Super Friends. Super Friends was sort of my generation. But when you read comic books and you get a Superman or a Batman, you got one hero. With the Justice League, you can have five, seven, 10, all sorts of men beating up men, and in these books, you get them all. You get all these heroes. Which action figure was the hardest one for me to find? I don't think it's so much a matter of hardest to find, because with Amazon and eBay, you can find just about anything. I think it's those action figures that you may pass up on and figure you'll have time to get it again, and then suddenly it disappears and it becomes worth a lot of money. So I would have to say it was a Catwoman. It was the first series that Barbie started making, and it was a Barbie Catwoman. I passed her up. She was $49.99 at a toy store, and I kicked myself for 4 or 5 years not getting her, and finally I did. I paid probably about $120, $130. My brother, who's 6 years older than me, he has more toys than me. He's a GI Joe collector. The only reason I have GI Joes, those are presents he's given to me. Now, with our age difference, 6 years, he was the one that kept his toys in perfect condition. I was the one that took his toys and broke them. I like to play with the toys. I would play with them. I would beat them to pieces. My favorites were the ones with removable clothing. I'd swap clothes. The weird thing with both my brother and I is we get an action figure, the first thing we do is take their clothes off. I have no idea why. Just a weird thing with us. Boy, girl, doll, doesn't matter. I mean action figure. Doesn't matter. Just you take the clothes off, and we just beat the shit out of these things. I'm very lucky that my son, even though he kind of messed with me a little bit by shaking the cabinet, knocking him down, he's been very good not to get into my toys. There have been times when I would have a couple missing out of my cabinet, and I remember one night waking him up, like almost threatening his life because I couldn't find those figures. I was so pissed. And the next day, my sister told me, "Yeah, you actually put those up on a shelf. I remember." And yeah, I did. So I had a lot to apologize for to him. The figures, I have a group of figures that I like to call ours. So they're figures that he and I both kind of play with and collect and so forth. But the hard thing with that is if I find one broken, as I found one broken today, it still bugs the shit out of me. I have trouble remembering that the difference between my brother and I was he kept his figures perfect, and I would play with them and I would break them, and that was part of the fun. And I have trouble remembering that when my own son, who is now 10, and that sometimes happens. And it's hard, but you glue it back and there it is. I bought these for him. These are figures that reminded me of the stuff I grew up with, I played with, and they're really well made, well produced. And these were, one intention, one reason. These were for my son. I liked them so much, I never gave it to him. My mother, even though she wouldn't even know what this is, she was obsessive compulsive. She was a hoarder. She would hoard things. So in her own way, she collected things. She couldn't throw things away. And I'm not talking about, old dishware, old glasses. I'm talking about garbage. She would clean out a cottage cheese container. She would wash out a milk carton. She would not throw away garbage. And imagine how these things piled up. Piles of glasses I had, glasses you would wear just in a bag, or toothbrushes. She wouldn't throw a toothbrush away. This was my mother's problem. So I sometimes wonder, I realize what I have is an obsession. And I think it's a somewhat harmless obsession, but I still think it's somehow related to my mother and my childhood because I have this problem, and so does my brother. My brother has more toys than I do, except his are all in the box, and mine aren't. In some strange way, I still play with mine. I'll still pose them very carefully until something knocks them down, like my kid, or a mild earthquake. But I will still find a way to play with them, then walk away from them and forget about them for a few days. Do I think I'll ever be done collecting? I don't think so. I sometimes wonder, um, will I be 70 and 80 years old reading a comic book? And yeah, if they're still writing good stories, I don't see that changing. I might have to pay somebody to read them to me. Will I be done actually buying toys? If it's something I like, probably not. But it does go through my head, what am I going to do with all these things? If my son doesn't have any interest, what do I do with them? As he gets closer to college, perhaps there's certain groups of toys I can sell, and I have a large collection of stuff in not even taken out of the box that is worth money as a complete series. So who knows? Maybe I'll pay for his college degree with that. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to parting with the things for those reasons.